My parents walked into my home with luggage and said, "We gave you life, now you give us yours." My brother gave me a thumbs up. I waited until they got comfortable before revealing what their name was actually on. I, 34 male, live in Asheville, North Carolina. After years of hard work, I finally bought my own home, a modest 3-bedroom house with a small garden. It was my sanctuary, a place where I could find peace and solitude. Growing up, my parents were always controlling. My younger brother, Jake, was the golden child. No matter what he did, they praised him. I, on the other hand, could never do anything right. When I was 18, I moved out and limited contact with them. A few months ago, out of the blue, my parents showed up at my doorstep with luggage in hand. Jake was with them, grinning. "We gave you life," my mother said. "Now you give us yours." I was stunned. They had no prior discussion with me about moving in. Jake gave me a thumbs up, clearly pleased with the ambush. I took a deep breath, stepped aside, and let them in. I needed time to process what was happening. They made themselves at home immediately. My mother criticized my furniture, my father complained about the food, and Jake lounged on the couch as if he owned the place. I tried to set boundaries, but they were ignored. My home was no longer mine. Weeks passed, and the situation worsened. They took over my bedroom, leaving me to sleep on the couch. They invited their friends over without asking, used my car without permission, and even started rearranging my furniture. One evening, after a particularly heated argument about my lack of hospitality, I decided I had enough. I began researching my legal options. I discovered that since I owned the house outright, I had the right to evict anyone who wasn't on the lease. But I wanted to do more than just evict them. I wanted them to understand the consequences of their actions. I started by documenting everything. Their behavior, the arguments, the damages. I installed security cameras and kept a detailed journal. Then, I reached out to a lawyer friend who specialized in property law. Together, we crafted a plan. One evening, I called a family meeting. "I have something to show you," I said, pulling out a folder. Inside were copies of the deed to the house, the security footage, and the journal entries. "You've been living here without my permission," I said calmly. "And now I'm asking you to leave." My parents were furious. My mother screamed about betrayal, my father threatened legal action, and Jake just looked confused. But I stood my ground. "You have 30 days to vacate," I said. "If you refuse, I'll involve the authorities." They left, begrudgingly, within the month. I changed the locks, deep cleaned the house, and slowly began to reclaim my space. It wasn't easy. There were days when I doubted myself, when the guilt crept in. But I reminded myself that I deserved peace, that I had the right to set boundaries. Jake eventually reached out, apologizing for his part in the ordeal. We're rebuilding our relationship, slowly but surely. As for my parents, we're estranged. And honestly, that's for the best. After they left, I thought the worst was behind me. For about 2 weeks, the house was finally quiet again. I got back to my routine: morning coffee, freelance work, the usual stuff. I even started sleeping better. But then a letter came in the mail, one that made my stomach twist. It was from the county courthouse. My parents had filed for elderly dependent housing rights. I didn't even know that was a thing. I read the paper 3 times, slower each time. They were trying to legally force me to let them live in my home. They claimed I kicked them out unfairly, that they had no other place to go, and that I had manipulated them under the guise of hospitality. My hands shook holding the letter. I called my lawyer immediately. He read it and paused before speaking. "It's a long shot," he said, "but they found a loophole. If they can convince a judge they were dependent on you, and that you threw them out without providing alternate shelter, you might be ordered to let them back in." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. These people were the same ones who bragged about their condo in Florida. They had money. They had other options. They just wanted control. Jake called that night. Mom and Dad told me you're trying to make them homeless, he said. Are you serious? I snapped. You saw what they did here. You saw how they treated me. Yeah, he said. But it's still harsh, man. They're our parents. They're your parents, I said and hung up. A week later, I saw them again, but not in person. They were on the local news. My mother had gone to a Help Our Seniors segment and told the camera, with fake tears, how her son abandoned her and her husband after promising them a home. They made me sound like a monster. The comments online were brutal. Strangers called me selfish, heartless, disgusting. People who had no idea what really happened. I started getting hate mail. Someone even threw eggs at my door one night. I kept all the footage, reported every incident, but inside I was unraveling. Then something even worse happened. I got a visit from Child Protective Services. They were looking for a child in distress, reported living at my home. I blinked. I don't have kids. The woman from CPS looked confused. The report said otherwise. They inspected the home anyway. Empty bedrooms, no toys, no signs of children. They left after confirming it was a false call, but it rattled me. I knew exactly who was behind it. I called my lawyer again. Can I sue them? Eventually, he said. But you'll need more proof. They're playing a long, dirty game. So I leaned in. I hired a private investigator. I started gathering everything: recordings, past emails, phone call logs, bank records. I even dug into that condo in Florida they claimed to have sold. They hadn't sold it. They still owned it. They had been renting it out for extra income, all while pretending they were homeless. I gave that to my lawyer, and we filed a motion to have the case dismissed. But before the court date arrived, they pulled another trick. They showed up at my house again, this time with a police escort. They told the officer they were returning to their legal residence. The cop looked at me like I was scum. I showed him the deed. My name. Only my name. Still, he said, I'm not here to take sides. They'll have to leave, but you should handle this in court. They smiled at me the whole time as they were escorted back to their car. I could see it in their eyes, they weren't done. And deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the house. They wanted to ruin me. Strip me down to nothing. But what they didn't know was, I had nothing left to lose. A week after they tried to return, my bank called. Someone tried to access my accounts. They had my social security number, my birthday, my old security questions. The banker asked if I had recently authorized a power of attorney. My heart sank. I hadn't. But someone else tried to submit one, signed, supposedly by me. The signature was fake, sloppy. They tried to make it look rushed, probably to cover the fact that it didn't match mine at all. The banker flagged it and froze the account immediately. I knew who did it. Nobody else had that information except my parents. And Jake. I wanted to believe he wasn't involved. I really did. But my gut told me otherwise. When I confronted him, he denied everything. I don't even know how to file that kind of thing, he said. I watched his face closely. He wouldn't look me in the eye. Then how did Mom and Dad know my bank's internal code for third-party access? I asked. He went quiet. Did they threaten you, Jake? Or did you help them? He hung up. 2 days later, a notice was taped to my front door. It was from the IRS. I was being audited. I don't make a crazy amount of money. I freelance, live modestly, file my taxes early every year. Still, here was a letter saying I had to provide years' worth of documents and receipts. The letter said a concerned family member had reported irregular income. They were trying to destroy me from every angle: financial, legal, public image, now the government. I sat at my kitchen table, hands trembling, trying to process it all. I felt like I was trapped in a maze, with every turn leading to another dead end or another attack. My lawyer and the private investigator both said the same thing. They were trying to build a case that I was unstable, irresponsible, maybe even dangerous. "They're baiting you," my PI said. "If you snap, they'll have what they want." I didn't snap. I got quiet. I got focused. I started digging deeper. I wanted to know just how far they were willing to go. That's when I found it. Back in 2006, my father had started a shell company, just a name on paper, never made a dime. But he had listed me as a silent partner. Without my knowledge. That company had a loan on it. $65,000. And it had defaulted 2 years ago. Which meant I now had a debt in collections. He used my name. I brought this to my lawyer. "Can we get him charged with fraud?" "Yes," he said. "But we'll need absolute proof he did it knowingly." That night, I went into the attic to find an old box of family files, stuff I'd grabbed from my parents' house years ago without thinking much of it. At the very bottom, buried under birthday cards and school photos, I found a copy of the loan application. My dad's handwriting. My name. His signature. Proof. I scanned it, emailed it to my lawyer, and poured myself a drink. I was exhausted. But I finally had something solid. I expected the lawsuit would take time to unfold, but I didn't expect what came next. Jake texted me. "Call me. It's bad." I didn't want to. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes before finally pressing the call button. "Mom had a breakdown," he said the second I answered. "She smashed up the condo in Florida. The neighbors called the police." I didn't say anything. "I know they've done messed up stuff," Jake went on. "But she's not well. She keeps saying you stole her life." I didn't know how to respond to that. He added, "Dad's talking about suing me now. For emotional distress. He says I betrayed the family." A part of me wanted to hang up. But the other part, the part that remembered how I used to protect Jake from our dad's temper, couldn't ignore it. "They're going to turn on you too," I said. "You're next." He didn't argue. That same night, I got another email. From my lawyer. He'd found something. "Check the attached documents," the email said. It was a scanned copy of a second deed. One I'd never seen before. A quitclaim deed. It had my forged signature on it, transferring the house to my parents. Filed. Stamped. Hidden deep in county records. They'd actually tried to steal my house on paper. And if I hadn't caught it in time, they could have used it in court and won. The twist? It had been filed months before they even showed up at my door. They'd planned this. All of it. From the start. The forged deed was the final line. They hadn't just crossed it, they danced on it. I showed the documents to my lawyer the next morning. He went pale, then got very quiet. "This is serious," he said. "We're not talking about harassment anymore. This is felony-level fraud." He filed an emergency motion with the court to block any property transfers. We also filed criminal charges against both of my parents. Jake didn't return my calls. The sheriff's office opened an investigation. The forged deed, the fake power of attorney, the financial records, the identity theft, it was all laid out in a giant binder of evidence. 3 weeks later, detectives knocked on my door. They needed access to the home's security footage. "Your father is denying he ever entered the house," one officer said. I pulled up the footage of them rolling in their luggage, waving to the cameras, helping themselves to the fridge like they owned the place. The officer smirked. The warrants came a week later. My parents were arrested at their condo in Florida. Apparently, they had no idea the investigation had gone that far. My mom screamed the whole way out. My dad kept saying, "We did this for family." Jake called me that night. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I swear. I didn't know about the deed." "I believe you," I said. And I did. But I also knew he'd stood by for too long. He had chances to walk away. He didn't. The trial dragged on for months. They tried to make me look unstable, greedy, ungrateful. But the evidence shredded their case. The judge didn't even flinch when sentencing them. My dad got 5 years. My mom got 2. Jake moved to Arizona a month later. We haven't spoken since. I wish I could say I felt peace when it ended. I didn't. I felt empty. People think revenge is satisfying. Sometimes it is. But this was different. It wasn't about winning. It was about survival. They tried to destroy me. They lost everything. But so did I, in a way. I lost the illusion that family meant something unbreakable. I lost whatever faint hope I had left that we could ever fix what had been broken for years. I still live in the same house. I replaced the locks. I got a security system with motion sensors. I keep the blinds closed most days. I don't trust easily anymore. But I sleep better. They gave me life. That much is true. But I gave them every chance to be decent people. And when they chose war, they learned the hard way. I fight to finish.